I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with MACE Curran, who is a former fighter pilot, combat veteran, and the second woman in history to fly lead solo for the Air Force Thunderbirds. And we are talking about the insights from her demanding, dangerous, yet what she also calls an incredibly fulfilling career, and how she managed fear and self-doubt while being in this very unique position, and really how it's translated into the rest of her life and even her new career as an author and speaker. So she's sharing personal stories, her favorite tools. We talk about her near-death experiences while flying, career and life transitions. She even describes what it feels like inside of a jet when you go supersonic, or when you experience G-force and G-lock. So yeah, this was just really fascinating. I mean, if you're like me, where your idea of adventure is trying a new flavor of tea, and you would never even think to fly a jet, she does not just speak to pilots or people in the military. So Mace is talking about things and feelings that we all experience: fear, self-doubt, transitions, decision making, chasing after a dream or a feeling we have. So feel free to plug in your own details to the tips and experiences that she's offering up today. Also, I gotta say, it was pretty cool speaking to a real life Top Gun. I mean, which we even talk about that franchise and how it's impacted the public perception of fighter pilots in general. But since I met my husband working at the movie studio that made Top Gun, and our dogs are named Maverick and Goose. We even had our family walk down the aisle to Danger Zone at our wedding. Anyway, we're in pretty deep with the Top Gun stuff. So that was just a little extra fun for both me and Cam, that I chatted with Mace today. Also, I really appreciate that I asked Mace some pretty tough questions in this conversation about experiencing combat and even the criticism that the military receives. And she very graciously responded to all of those and was really an open book, even with the harder stuff. So I'm really grateful that we all got to hear those insights as well. All right, everybody, here is my chat with Mace Curran. What's a myth or misconception about the Thunderbirds or fighter pilots that you wish more people knew or that you would like to maybe clear up?
Yeah, I think fighter pilots in general have a lot of misconceptions, and I thank you, Hollywood, for those.
Right.
With the Top Gun series being so massive and like such a pop cultural phenomenon, everyone
Yes.
assumes that like all fighter pilots are Maverick or Hangman. And it's funny because as we have this conversation, I'm sure people will realize that I'm like a shy, laid back, introverted kind of person.
Not
And so this
interesting.
idea that we're all like type A, just like in your face, super egotistical, arrogant, like that is, there are a few people like that, of course, but I
Sure.
would say the vast majority are like more nerdy than they are in your face, like athletes, jocks.
Yeah. Yeah, the typical jock kind of
Yeah.
stereotype. That is very interesting. And of course, my dogs, Maverick and Goose, like I told you, are sitting back there. So obviously, this is a huge phenomenon, the Top Gun franchise, but it's not always the accurate depiction. So I'm a writer, and when I make a mistake in my job, it looks like a typo or forgetting to CC somebody on an email. But in the work that you did as a pilot, an error could cost you your life. How in the world did you cope with that in your day to day and not let fear and perfectionism just destroy your mental health? Or did it?
Yeah, at various phases in my career, I did better than others, I will say for sure.
Yeah.
I think, early on when you're brand new to it, you're a student, you're having your first flight, your first solo, your first whatever skill you're learning,
Yeah.
you're taught to compartmentalize that and to really just focus on the task at hand. And like there were two big pieces of advice I was given one of my first days in pilot training. So I'm like brand new. I've really not flown anything. It's all exciting, but it's all uncertain and it's scary. And you're competing against your peers and you're like am I going to mess up this big dream I have? And there's all this pressure. The
Yeah.
two things were you have to compartmentalize, like come up with a visual model of you're going to mess something up airborne. It's going to happen a lot at first. You got to like, throw that in the back seat or like chuck it out the tailpipe or whatever. I like and I've told my son this when he was a pitcher in baseball, and it seemed to help him when he would like get in his own head. I'm like, take that mistake you threw a bad pitch, you had a bad inning, or I just messed this thing up in the air. You know, SpongeBob and those like obnoxious treasure chests. We're gonna put that in there. We're gonna close it, put that big old crusty lock on there, and we're gonna just like chuck it off the boat into the ocean, and we will deal with that later.
Yeah.
I don't think that's healthy in life in general, but in that atmosphere where it's like do or die in the situation, it's very temporary. It's, you know, an hour-long flight or whatever it is. That is a very helpful mental model, honestly. It sounds so silly.
Oh,
But
it makes sense. I would imagine you only have the capacity for what's in front of you and be incredibly present, right?
exactly. And I saw other students really spiral down a path of like doing fine. And then all of a sudden they would have one bad flight and they would let that get in their head. And they're on their next flight and they would make a mistake and it would like be distracting them from the thing at hand. So they would make another mistake and pretty soon it snowballs. And now they're at risk of being like removed from the program because really they made a normal mistake that everyone makes, but they couldn't get out of their own head.
Right.
That ability to compartmentalize, which I've visualized as literally a compartment that happened to be a treasure chest,
Yeah.
has served me well my entire career.
Yeah, that's a hot tip, and I was gonna ask how the lessons you've learned in your career has kind of, transferred to your parenting style, but that was a really great example of that. And now I'm curious, now that you are out of the military and you made this career transition, has your relationship with failure or perfectionism, has that changed for you, or do you still use some of those same tips and tricks in your current life?
I still use a lot of them. I think
Yeah.
I have an unfair advantage, I would say, because I have this mentality when I'm about to do something that feels uncertain, feels scary. Maybe it's, you know, when I gave my first keynote speech, or it's like trying something new during a speech, or it's making a sales call, or, you know, something where I'm like getting that anxiety beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wait, if I royally screw this up, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
Eh, It's not that.
Right. You do have that incredible advantage now with anything else you try.
And I know most people don't have that. So that's like not a good, like, here, let me give you a tip that you can use in your own life. But the compartmentalization thing actually works in so many different situations.
Yeah.
I talk about cognitive reappraisal. I know a few different like people in the thought leadership space have talked about that. So it might not be a new concept to people, but the most common one that you'll hear about is reframing anxiety as excitement.
Right.
And that like your physiological response to that stressor is the same if you're super excited to go do this thing versus you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And so I use that for keynotes a lot because if I have like haven't spoken in a while and I feel a little bit rusty, or it's an intimidating audience for some reason, like
Yeah.
I'm not certain my message is going to land as much with, you know, whatever audience compared to a different one, I might feel that beforehand and I'm like, no, I'm excited because I get to impact these people today. Like even if it's
Mhm.
only 5 people in that audience that feel seen and feel like they can go do something with this, and I know it's going to be more than that,
Yeah.
set the bar low, right?
Right,
It's
right.
very doable.
Yeah.
I'm like, what an honor it is to be in a position where I get to do that for someone, and, like, I should be so excited about that. And just, like, giving myself that pep talk about, I feel like I'm having anxiety, sweaty palms, dry mouth, that's the worst, especially when there's a microphone by your face. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm excited. And so reframing that has been a super useful tool in those, like, high stakes moments.
What was the moment that you knew that you wanted to do this or pursue it?
So I was in college. I was on an Air Force ROTC scholarship, and
Okay.
I had been in high school. I was a good student. I didn't have a college fund, so my parents and I were like talked. We're like, let's look at scholarship opportunities. The military just has a lot of great ones.
Right.
At that time, I wanted to go be an FBI agent.
Okay.
Right? I always
Wow.
joke, and I don't know where that really came from, but I did really love the X-Files growing up, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
such a
maybe
good
that was
show.
it. I obviously not the most realistic portrayal of what an FBI agent does day to day, but for whatever reason, that's what I wanted to do. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to be a criminal justice major. I'm going to get my college paid for. I'll do 4 years on active duty in the Air Force, probably
Right.
doing special investigations or something that would translate well to the FBI.
Right. Then
You
you'll
know,
be Agent Scully. You'll
I'll
crush it.
be Agent Scully. Yeah, I'm ready to be Dana Scully. I will be qualified now because they love military experience. Like that's a plus. I'll have this degree, all the things. So that was my plan as like a 17-year-old. So I'm executing, right? ROTC scholarship. I'm going to be in the Air Force, but I'm a criminal justice major. So that's all going as planned. And then partway through, we go visit a base and I'm standing on the ramp and I get to see 2 fighter jets take off in full afterburner up close for the first time. And I am just like awestruck, like goosebumps,
Yeah.
jaw open, staring at them, just like, holy crap, forget the FBI. Like, that looks awesome.
Wow.
That was the moment I was like, okay, I should probably try to go do that.
You're like, yep, that's gonna be me up there. That is what. So it was just a feeling that overcame you. It wasn't like this strategic plan of this is what I'm gonna do next because of X amount of outcome or whatever. It was just that feeling that you got when you saw it happen.
Yeah, it was a specific moment I could target, like this spark of inspiration that it was always something that had kind of intrigued me because I did like adventure and thrill seeking and I was like, ooh, that looks cool. But I only
Yeah.
kind of conceptually had a vague idea of it. And then seeing the jets like in your face vibrates your whole body with the jet noise, all the things, I was just like, oh my God.
Oh my, I swear I am sweating just thinking about this because I am somebody who gets scared like tubing on the back of a boat that's going 3 miles an hour, and I never want to do it again just for the fear that I might get hurt. Like, does thrill seeking or kind of adrenaline, this type of desire run in your family? Are you an outlier in that respect?
Definitely not with my mom. That's for
Okay.
it's like the opposite. It was pretty common on like family road trips in the summer that my dad and I would go ride roller coasters at theme parks like Cedar Point. I
Okay.
remember waiting at the gate for it to open. And like as they roll the gate open, my dad and I like running to get in line for like I think it was like the fastest roller coaster in the world or something for a while
Oh
that
my
was there.
god.
Uh, he doesn't like that stuff anymore. He just turned 70, so maybe that's why. I still love roller coasters, but my like risk assessment, I'm 38, and I would say my risk assessment in the last like 5 years or so has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
My joints feel really fragile, so I feel like if I go like ski something crazy and fall down, I'm like things are tearing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we're in your 20s, you just bounce right back up from most things, and I feel that that is not the case for me now. So maybe that's it. But I still like the idea of it, but I think I definitely play more mainstream now with those things where it's actually not that risky.
There's something that, happens when you hit your 30s where I think that your perspective on things change, or even with, like, when you have a partner or you have a child, I think that is just a natural outcome of that, and like you said, your joints are different and all that stuff. I still don't understand how you can travel, like, faster than, what, the speed of sound, and how do your bones not break? I'm not understanding how the human body can even endure such things, and could you talk a little bit about, like, is it called G-force or
Yeah.
G-lock or anything that you could share?
Yeah, so speed isn't really the issue in itself. So if you're
Okay.
just cruising along straight, level, not trying to turn, just driving an airplane straight and you light the afterburner and you get faster and faster and you pass Mach 1.0. So now you're going supersonic, faster than the speed of sound.
Oh my
I think
god.
it's very anticlimactic. Like anyone that gets a ride in the back seat for some reason is like, I want to go supersonic. The pilot's like, okay, they do it and they're like, okay, you're supersonic. And they're like, that's it.
Oh,
Like
so there's no, like, boom or anything or
nothing
nothing?
happens in the cockpit.
Oh,
Like, you
wow.
just see the airspeed past that mark and you're like, "Okay, check, we've done it." If you get, like, really fast close to the operating limits of the aircraft, you can hear the wind rush. It starts to get little bit loud in there. Like,
Okay.
no stress on your body. G-forces, that's where it's a whole 'nother ball game. So
Okay.
G-forces is now I'm flying along and a car is a great analogy since people have a better understanding of that.
Yeah.
Imagine you're driving like 60 miles an hour and all of a sudden you decide to make an aggressive turn.
Oh
Right?
my
Like you're
God.
gonna get like slammed against or pressed against the side of your car.
Right.
So in an airplane though, the airplane rotates, right? Like as we roll to turn, so now instead of going sideways, we're going downward. Like our feet are on the outside of that turn. So the pressure, because not to get into physics, but like inertia wants you to just keep going straight, but
Yeah.
you're putting the controls to turn. So especially if you're going faster, there's all that energy, that like forward momentum. And so when you turn, now you get pushed down into the seat. And so the F-16, which is what I flew, you can experience up to 9 Gs. G is just stands for gravity. So it's 1 G is the force of gravity. So right
Okay.
now, you and I are at 1 G.
Where I'd like to stay.
Most of us exist most of the time. Easy math, because math in public. If you weighed 100 pounds, if you're pulling 9 Gs, now you would feel like you weighed 900 pounds.
Oh
Like
my
obviously the
gosh.
mass isn't increasing, but that force is like 900 pounds. So 9 times the gravity.
Yeah.
So that is hard on the body.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is a lot of compression on your spine, on your back, your neck, just your joints in general. And then the other big thing that is kind of more accumulates over time. That's what
Okay.
you deal with when you're my age and you did it for a decade plus. You're like, oh, why does my back hurt in the morning? That's why.
Mm.
But in the moment when you're actually physically pulling the G's, the problem is everything in your body is getting pushed down, including the blood running through it. And so your heart is obviously pumping away, but it's only so strong. And
Yeah.
it's not stronger than 9 times the force of gravity. So the blood in your head and your brain gets pushed out. And that's where people will black out. It's what we call a G-lock, a G-induced loss of consciousness.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Obviously, if flying a fighter jet, especially one like the one I flew, there's only one pilot in there. So if you are sleeping unconscious, now you have a jet going the speed of sound with no one at the controls. Really bad things can happen.
Yeah.
So we do a bunch of training. We wear a special suit on our lower body that looks like a pair of snow pants, but inside of it are these air bladders that inflate and they squeeze your legs to help push the blood back up so it doesn't like pool in your lower extremities.
Okay.
I always say it's essentially like a giant blood pressure cuff and you are a tube of toothpaste.
Oh my God.
Like, push that back up. And then we do a G strain in like our, well, it's really your whole body, but it's this unique breathing technique where you like take a big breath of air and then you do little air exchanges every 3 seconds. Because if you breathe out under 9 Gs, you won't be able to reinflate your lungs because they're just not strong enough. So you got to do like little quick air exchanges, like little gasps of air essentially to keep them inflated. And then you're also flexing all of your lower muscles, like you're squeezing your glutes and your hamstrings and your quads and even your stomach against that suit that's squeezing you.
Yeah.
And that like kind of squishes everything together and like the blood's like, gotta go somewhere. So it goes back up. So yeah, it's
Woo!
a lot going on under 9
Oh,
Gs.
I mean,
Not
yeah.
very fun.
I mean, and Mace, you were doing this willingly. So I
Yep,
would
yep.
imagine the enjoyment or thrill or whatever you're getting out of this far outweighs the potential consequences. Can you speak about what is overriding this, this fear or reality that something really terrible could happen?
Yeah, I think for a while in the beginning, you just kind of pretend it's not a thing and you're naive.
Okay.
And then everyone will have some close call that happens at some point. That's a wake up call. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is like actually dangerous.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not a close call they might lose a friend in some sort of accident. And they're like,
Right.
okay, reality check, like
Right.
serious repercussions. And then you realize we have all of these safety features in effect. We train relentlessly. We do everything we can to mitigate the risk as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it is an inherently dangerous job, but it's also like one of the coolest jobs you could ever do. And
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
fun, it's exciting, it's hard. You work with some of the most amazing people and you get to be part of these extremely high performing teams that really have a tangible purpose. And there's just so much like fulfillment in that and so much
Yeah.
camaraderie in that. And so I think that all outweighs. And being in a high performing team in a dangerous environment creates that in a way that I think most people never get to experience.
Right.
Knowing
Right.
that person next to you has your back in like a do or die situation creates just an incredible bond. And it's can be hilarious at times because there's gallows humor and people are just so tight knit. And it can be really stressful at times, but you
Yeah.
rely on each other.
So I've heard you mention some near-death experiences that you had while flying. I mean, how did you compose yourself during those moments in order to land safely? How did these impact you, whether personally or professionally? Anything that you can share about those?
Yeah, I flew the Air Force for 13 years, and I would say I probably had, a handful of close calls.
Okay.
One that really sticks out is I see a black flash, and I have no time to react in any way. I can't move to avoid it. It's
Yeah.
just big flash. I hit a vulture, and it's in the middle of an air show practice. So I am one of the solo pilots. So it's myself and the other solo are kind of like cruising along where the crowd can't see us. We're like behind them, about to join up with each other for the next part of the show. But numbers 1 through 4 on the Thunderbirds, what we call the diamond, they're like in the middle of a loop, like over, like doing a maneuver in front of the crowd. So I can't just get on the radio and be like, we need to do something, like help.
Yeah.
I literally have to just be quiet and wait for them to finish, because disrupting them when they're in the middle of all that focus and the commander is making all these radio calls that they rely on, like that could create another dangerous situation.
Right.
So I have the immediate realization of like, oh, this is probably bad. And then I go into kind of this sequence that part of it is just human reaction, like fight or flight. But then I immediately fall back on the training that's just been like drilled into my brain for so many years at that point. So I have the heart rate goes up, mouth gets dry, the like that visceral response.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what have I been taught to do? I've been trained for this. So what we're taught from pilot training, the earliest first flights, is maintain aircraft control, analyze the situation, take proper action, and land as soon as possible. And that sounds like, duh. Like,
Oh,
sure, of course you should do that. But when you're in the thick of it, there's so many
yeah.
examples where a malfunction has happened in an airplane, an emergency has happened, and step 1 has been neglected. Maintain aircraft control. Something bad happens and we get so distracted and glommed onto that we let the absolutely critical things like fall off the table, and we actually make the situation worse. And I think we can overlay that into a lot of things, not flying a jet, where that could be true.
Yeah.
And then the second part, so it's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to level off. I'm not climbing. I'm not, speeding up, whatever. I'm just like, everything's good. Maintain aircraft control. Now let's analyze the situation. And this is also a critical piece where there are all these horror stories where people have thought they knew what was wrong, and they've reacted to it. They've started flipping switches or, doing something with their airplane, but they actually didn't pause long enough to really analyze. So they were applying the wrong response to the situation, and it made things worse. And one of the things that we always say in the jet is pause and wind the clock. And there's this like old school manual stopwatch type clock down by your right knee that literally no one uses anymore. It's just in there from like back in the day. So no one actually winds it now, but it's like this metaphor for, hey, pause for a second. Like the airplane is not falling out of the sky. Take a breath, look around, and what data do you have to inform your actual response? And so it's like looking at my engine instruments, or are my hydraulics okay, or whatever. So I'm doing that and then taking proper action, right? Which in that case ended up telling everyone on the radio as soon as there was an opportunity, having my other solo get his jet as close to mine as he could to try to like look with his eyeballs to see if he could see any damage. And then doing as like ginger of a turn towards the runway and just landing like straight in, not doing any crazy Thunderbird maneuver or anything, right? Just like, okay, my landing gear came down, hydraulics are good. And I ended up landing really uneventfully, which sounds like the most boring end to the story. But I taxi over to my crew chiefs, which are some of the enlisted guys on the Thunderbird team that do all the maintenance on the jets.
Okay.
And there's always 2 assigned to your aircraft and to you for the whole season. So you get really close with them. And my crew chief, Dylan, he climbed up my ladder. He puts my ladder on the side of the cockpit, climbs up. So he's like eye level with me. And he looked so freaked out, like, ma'am, there's 2 holes through the side of your airplane. And honestly, for me, when he said that, that's when I got the adrenaline dump. when
Oh,
it was like coming off the backside of like, I just have to execute and get safely on the ground. And then once I was parked, the canopy comes up. I'm safe now. Like I'm good. And so when he came up and was like, you have 2 holes in your airplane, it was almost just me being like, oh shit, like that could have been so bad. And
yeah.
my hands started shaking.
When that hit you, that could have been your last flight. Did that change anything for you, your career, or
It did freak me out for a little while. You know, like the next day I had to go fly another Thunderbird air show. I had to go fly another air show in that exact same location. We did 2 more that weekend. And there was one point, maybe a week or 2 later, where and we were at a different air show location and we were all 6 of us close together. And I saw like a hawk or something, like a large bird between our jets. And I had widened out a little bit in my formation position. So I'm on like the far, far left wing when I was flying for the team. So I do have the luxury of not having anyone else on my other side. So I could like just move a little bit further away from the jet next to me. And we watch the tape review after this flight. And we're watching the formation, and you see my jet get a little bit wide, like a little bit out of formation. And
yeah,
boss, Thunderbird 1 was like, Mace, like, what's going on right there? You got to stop doing that. Like, knock it off. And that was kind of a wake up call for me of like, oh, it worked out fine. But I went through that whole like emotional response of just like, oh, that could have been really bad. I would probably had to eject. And like, that's just super traumatic. I'm like, we're still people, right? Like, we get put on this pedestal of being like these robots in very tight blue uniforms that are just perfect all of the time.
right, like superheroes, basically. Yeah,
Exactly. And we work very hard at a very specific skill that allows us to do that level of near perfection that people see.
yeah,
But what I really like about sharing my story now is that I get to talk about these kind of things where I'm like, look, it's not just relentless self-confidence. It's
yeah.
air and it's fear and it's all the things that everyone experiences just in a really extreme environment.
Right. I would assume being a Thunderbird is a very sought after position. And then on top of it, being one of a few women or a small percentage of women who get to do it. What kind of experiences did you have on the way to that position, especially as the lead solo position that that you went through because of being a woman, whether it was a disadvantage, criticism, sexism, anything like that? And then on the other hand, did you find that you had any advantages because you were a woman?
Yeah, some of both.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And this is like one of those topics that's so nuanced. It's almost like hard to get into because
Yeah,
especially right now, it's just such a hot button issue where people have like these very black and white concrete opinions on it, even if it's something they've never firsthand experienced.
right.
So I would say it changed throughout my career. When I decided that I wanted to fly fighter jets and that became my dream, I didn't think anything about gender. I was just like, this is what I want to do. I
Right.
have a track record of working really hard at stuff and making it happen. I'm going to do the same thing for this. And I did that. And honestly, all through pilot training, where it was so competitive, where I was competing to get one of 2 fighter jets for my class of 25 people, like you're with your best friends that you've become super close with, but you're also competing against each other.
Right.
And there were like little things that didn't bother me at the time, but with like perspective, I'm like, I mean, that does start to become a thing where like we would be out as a class, like we would all party together, you know, work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
And I remember being out one night with my class and there were some other pilot training classes there. And one of the guys, I overheard him talking to a guy in another class about me. And it wasn't bad, it was actually good. But he was saying, like, I could only hear half of his conversation. It was like, yeah, luckily she's super cool. Right? I know it could be a huge pain in the ass. Just
Uh,
like this, oh, affirmation that, okay, cool, I need to be one of the guys. Like, I better
yeah.
not rock the boat. I got to be super cool or I could be a pain in the ass. Like, those are the 2 options.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So I remember that. And I honestly, I wasn't offended or anything. I was like, okay, cool, great. I'm super cool. Love it. And then later in that program, again, I'm so young at this point. I'm maybe 23, 22, somewhere in there. I'm studying with one of my flight mates, and we are at our last check ride of the program. So we maybe have like a month left before we find out what jets we're going to go fly. Him and I kind of knew roughly that we were fighting for the second spot in the class. Like there was one guy that had just crushed it relentlessly. We're like, okay, he's first for sure. But this other guy and I are like neck and neck. And who ends up second and who ends up third very realistically could determine who gets a fighter jet and who doesn't. And it's likely going to come down to how we do on this single check ride, which is essentially like a big airborne test. So an evaluation flight, lots of pressure on those. There's only like 4 or 5 of them through the whole program. This is the last one. So we're studying together and we're like quizzing each other. And I ask him something and he's like got a few answers wrong and he was just getting really frustrated. And so because he was not feeling confident in where his knowledge level was going into this flight, he was like, I don't even know why I'm trying. They're just going to give you the fighter to check the box.
Ooh.
And I had never had anyone say anything like that to me before. And I just remember feeling like I just gotten punched.
Yeah.
Because I had worked so hard. Like I couldn't go back now and do that level of work capacity that I did then. Like, and I have been doing so well in that program consistently with all different instructors, all different like mission sets.
Yeah.
And for him to take like the blood, sweat, and tears and hours of work that I had put in over that last year to get to that point and just wipe it out with a single phrase was like shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you respond in that moment? Do you remember?
Oh, so different than I would have responded now.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. I just sat there and was like, okay, on to the next flashcard. I didn't defend myself. I didn't push back. But the like next day or within the next day or two when I had my check ride, I was like, watch me. So in that moment, I didn't have the courage to like have a quick comeback and speak up for myself. But when I left, I had very much like quiet resolve that this was going to be like the best check ride I've ever flown. And it actually ended up being the highest scoring check ride I'd ever gotten.
Wow.
And he did okay on his, but not as good. And so that really like, there was like a distinct difference in how we each did. And that kind of solidified that I was likely like in that second spot for trying to get a jet. And I like I don't have ill will against him now, but it was like just a distinct moment of like shifted our friendship for sure. And also shifted how I viewed myself in that world because I was like, do people think that?
Yeah.
And that was again, like towards the end of the first year of pilot training. So that was like the first inkling, like, oh, this is a thing.
And how would you respond now if you were in that moment again? I'm just so curious.
I have some tactics now. I think this works most of the time. You don't even have to go beyond this step. But if you're just like, pretend you didn't hear them and ask them to say it again.
I love that. That's a great tip. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah.
Could
like,
you repeat that?
So what was that?
Yeah.
Most of them are like, backpedal. And then if they say it again, like they're just like, oh, she didn't hear me, and they say it clearly, then you're just like, well, what do you mean by that? And now they have to explain like what they're trying to say.
Right.
Very few people are going to sit there and be like, well, I really just think because you're a woman that you actually don't deserve to be here. And that even though you've outperformed me this entire program, and you can just like walk away, and now you just left that person who just outed themselves as being like completely sexist,
right,
sit there with their thoughts that they just like professed.
As far as that career, I would imagine it is vital for certain positions to be absolutely performance-based because of the level of skill and accuracy you need for everyone's safety, including yours. And were there ever moments or opportunities or anything that you did get because you felt like, well, I think they are just checking a box because I'm a woman and I'm going to take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think the time between that first event and then like the next 6-7 years where I'm navigating how to fly the F-16, being a brand new wingman in my first combat squadron, all of that, it was much more of this is a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of other examples similar to that first one that happened later on at various points, and it became something that was reinforced externally quite a bit, but also that I internally put a ton of pressure on myself around, like, whatever I put up with when it comes to culture stuff, like someone makes a comment or a sexist joke or whatever, I wanna just be one of the guys and laugh along and fly under the radar, but I feel this immense pressure of whatever woman follows in my footsteps has to
Mm,
deal with whatever I'm okay with becomes the norm for her.
mm,
I felt that pressure,
yeah,
and then I also felt like performance-wise in the jet, if I'm really good at something, all female fighter pilots must be good at that. If I'm bad at some skill set, all female fighter pilots must be bad at that because 'cause I'm a data point of 1. People would
interesting.
extrapolate that to all of us. So they're and some of that is, like, not something that one individual intentionally did. It was just the culture we were in at that time, and I don't hold that against the people that were there, but I really put a ton of internal pressure on myself because of those things.
Mm,
And then you get to the Thunderbirds, and I'm, more experienced at this point. I've had time to be an instructor pilot. I've gotten to deploy. I've gotten to, like, really do the job and prove to myself that I was capable, so my confidence and my competence had both gone up quite a bit at that point.
yeah,
I see the email that the Thunderbirds are hiring, and I'm immediately, like, intrigued by it. I get that same excitement feeling that I got when I watched those first 2 jets take off, and I'm just like,
mm,
"I feel like this is the right career timing for me," and in any other squadron, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, but in that squadron where your whole goal is to get out in front of the American public,
right.
the mission is recruit, retain, and inspire. I believed that as a woman, I had a unique advantage to be in that role because I could connect with 50% of the population in a way that the guys flying next to me couldn't.
Totally.
And that would
Wow.
turn out to be very true. Still, obviously, not a lot of us, considering the team's been around since 1953. We've had
Yeah.
a really great streak recently as more women start to come into the career field as, like, it's more mainstream to see women in that role. I think more women realize it's an option.
Yeah. I was doing a little bit of reading about what a fighter pilot does in combat, was fascinated by all the different things. A lot of it seems like you're preventing casualties or attacks, you're scanning things, all that. Did you ever feel like there was a certain mission where you felt torn between your duties as a professional and maybe any personal values that you had? What is that experience like when you're in that situation?
Yeah, so in Afghanistan, we were doing close air support. So essentially, that is kind of what you described. It's your
Okay.
overwatch, you do have weapons on your aircraft, you are trying to protect the American troops on the ground while they go execute their missions, whether that's clearing a village or removing IEDs that have been planted along roads, like all of these things.
Yeah.
You're essentially there where if they need like some big target taken out, like there would be buildings where ISIS or the Taliban would like stash a ton of weapons and we
Mm,
could just like blow that up. There weren't any people in them. It was just like big explosion. But then I think it gets into when there are lives on the line and there's a live firefight happening and you need to be there to maybe change the tide of that. If like our guys are pinned down, having air support and a jet come in can completely change the scenario.
right.
And honestly, that was like the most rewarding mission that we could ever do. Being able to show up when there's that 20-year-old American soldier who's deployed and is fighting for his life and intervene in a way that keeps him alive. That's why we sign up to do the job. And so I think in that moment, very few of us would say that there was like a moral dilemma of whether or not to execute the mission.
Yeah.
But I also would say that realize what you're doing is very serious.
Right.
And you understand that the people that you might be employing weapons against, a lot of them are just kind of a victim of circumstance, right?
Mm,
Like they were born in this area, they had certain parents that they were groomed as a kid into this environment to be a fighter, and like they've never had the option to choose anything else. And
right.
like I think empathize with them and like understand that they have families, they have a mom, they might have a spouse, all of those things, but still know that I have a job to do and that I have to support the people that I'm there to support in that moment. We're not perfect in our execution when it comes to the US as a whole, but I think we do try really hard, especially in recent conflicts, like the last few decades. There are a lot of armed conflict. Like we try so hard to avoid civilian casualties. We try so hard to make sure we know exactly who it is and what they've done and all the things. And no one takes it lightly, right? Like high stakes.
Absolutely. And I would imagine even just the presence of seeing a fighter jet could disarm things without any violence or anything like that, right? Like just seeing that.
That is part of like some of the rules that we play by, is that you escalate force appropriately to try to use like the lowest level of force you can to stop the thing.
Right.
And a show of force is what you're referring to, where we might just get low, super loud, super fast, and that can be enough for them to just run away.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's kind of a tough question. And I would love to know your thoughts on this emergence of the UAP conversation shifting into the mainstream and how pilots are seen obviously as very credible sources if they do see something strange in the sky because of all of the flight hours that you guys have as far as seeing, I don't know, weird weather patterns or experimental aircraft or drones. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, it's one of those things I haven't experienced personally, but I think that the people that have come out talking about it are really credible, right? Like these aren't people that want to be in the media making something up.
Right.
Then like the Navy released a bunch of official records that have been classified a few years ago about all of that. And so it's like I think there's going to be an overlap of things that were just misidentified, or like it was some experimental government thing that got seen by someone who didn't know about it. Like that stuff does happen.
Right.
But I don't think that me saying that doesn't mean I'm like writing off that people could see other things. Like,
yeah,
I think it's like one of those intriguing and exciting things. And man, like the more I learn about just how big the universe is, hard to conceptualize that it would just be us. Right? Like
totally. Because you have this perspective, literally this perspective when you are in the sky, making turns and flipping around and doing all that stuff that most people will never do in their whole lifetime. Would you classify anything as a spiritual experience when you're up there? Do you feel really connected? Anything that you want to share about that?
I would say I get asked a lot if I miss it, because people are like, why would you leave like a dream job? You have to miss it. I don't miss 9Gs, like the super athletic, intense stuff.
Yeah.
What I do miss are like some of the most serene moments I've had in a cockpit. Like the F-16, you sit really high up compared to where the canopy starts, and like where the giant window is very large. It's very giant.
Yeah.
You have just this massive, like 180-degree plus unobstructed view, and the wings are pretty far back. So you like don't even have those in the way. It's just like, oh, the views are incredible. Wow. And I think, taking off in the middle of the night from Japan and flying to Hawaii from there and like watching the sunrise over the Pacific.
Oh my gosh.
Just like with your wingman a couple, like 2 miles away from you, you can look at each other and you have this air refueling aircraft, and it's just like very zen. And like, and you don't have cell phone service, you don't have Wi-Fi, you have like nothing to distract you. And honestly, I would spend so much time when we would do long flights, whether that was over the US or over the ocean or wherever, just looking outside and admiring the scenery and being like, wow, look at that like alpine lake that's aqua blue that's up between those two snow-capped mountains. And there's Half Dome in Yosemite, and they're like, and it felt so stress relieving.
Yeah.
When else do we do that?
The situation you're in, you're forced to be present not only for your safety, but then you said there's no cell service. You're seeing this incredible view. I would imagine that has got to be kind of a surreal experience.
Yeah. And I always get annoyed when I fly commercially and someone wants the window seat. They keep their blinds closed the whole time, their window shade closed the whole time. I'm like, bro, we're flying over the Rocky Mountains. Look outside. Like the Grand Canyon is under us right now. Please look outside. And people like just don't care. I really like outdoor stuff too. And one of my favorite things is like mountaineering and summiting something.
Does not surprise me.
Now my knees kind of hurt, so I haven't done it as much lately. But it was a thing I did quite a bit for a while. And that feeling of starting in the middle of the night and slogging along just under your headlamp and being on like Mount Rainier or like one of the strato volcanoes that's just like perfectly triangular shaped. And then the
Wow.
sun rises and you get that triangle shaped shadow
Yeah.
goes out over the pink clouds as the sun's coming up. And you're just like, is this real life? It just makes all of your problems
Wow.
feel really insignificant.
It makes me think of what people say, when they see the Earth from space, how you realize just how small it is compared to everything else and how you're just like this tiny little microorganism, and it completely shifts people's perspective or worldview. I'd love to know if you've ever been inspired by somebody who is completely risk averse. Like, they do not do any of the stuff that you do, at least when it comes to physical risk. Anybody in your career, your personal life.
Well, I think now, being a speaker and then having just worked on a book for the last 3 years,
Yeah.
there's a lot of authors and a lot of people in the thought leadership space. They're impacting so many people's lives.
Yeah.
Adam Grant is a great example. He just says things that need to be said in such a digestible, succinct, impactful way. Or even like Mel Robbins, so relatable. And her and I talk about a lot of the similar like types of things, like overcoming self-doubt and creating confidence and like really empowering other women to believe in themselves. And I don't know that she's ever going to go fly fighter jets or like jump out of an airplane.
Right.
And the funny thing is when we wrote my book proposal, one of the first sections or first lines was like, if Mel Robbins flew fighter jets, she would write the flip side.
That's so perfect.
We were trying to convey that like, yes, it's this extreme environment and wild stories and like high risk situations, but also it's so relatable. And
Right.
so I admire other people who are able to take complex human feelings and make people feel seen and heard and feel relatable and do it on a very like high success level.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many practical tips in your book and the way that you are able to take everything that you've learned in your career and make it make sense to somebody like me who would never do anything like that is really remarkable and a huge skill that you have. I do have a question about the whole call sign situation because I read that it's often based on a mistake you make as a pilot. Is that right? And you can't pick your call sign; you're just given it, and that's that. Do you feel like that was a helpful tactic for you to turn a mistake into like this cool, I mean, it is a pretty badass name, MACE. Pretty cool, pretty powerful. Or did you feel like was that kind of damaging also to be constantly reminded of your mistake over and over and have you taken that and plugged it anywhere else in your life? That whole, I guess, concept.
Yeah. Yeah, like many of the things, it changed over time. So when I first was given my call sign, which people are going to ask, so it stands for Mach at Circle Entry, which
Okay.
basically Mach, we talked about earlier, I broke the speed of sound,
Right.
not on purpose when I should not have. I did not even recognize I did it until we landed and looked at the tapes. And then circle entry is just like the maneuver we were trying to do. And I went too fast, not on purpose, which meant when I rolled and tried to point at my instructor to like gun him, even though everything's safed up, it's practice, I can never turn tight enough to point at him because I'm going so fast. Reference like going 60 miles an hour and trying to make a 30-mile-an-hour turn, just not going to work. But then the jet had so much energy on it that I hit 9 Gs, which is fine. We do that quite a bit. But the problem was I maintained 9 Gs for like a full 360-degree turn. And I
Jeez.
almost locked. Like it was
Wow.
so close. I had full light loss. So that means like my vision went from gray out to tunnel vision to complete blackout, but I was still aware of what was happening. Like I still knew what was going on. I could feel the controls. I could hear the jet engine, all of that. And then we backed off from there.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we really talked about all the things to preface that story so people can understand it. So I appreciate that. So that's
Yeah.
my all-time story. And they come from varying degrees of seriousness level of mistake. Like there's people that have been named something because they had like a bathroom mishap in the airplane. And that like
Mm.
that's embarrassing, but it also is like something that most people can laugh about after the fact.
Right, right.
For mine, at first, I carried quite a bit of shame with it because it was reckless. Like the fact that I made that mistake and then let it get that far,
Mm.
like going supersonic on accident, call it like young, inexperienced, okay, like that we can accept. But it's the fact that I kept pushing as I'm getting all of these physical symptoms of an impending G-lock. And in that moment, I could have very easily pulled back the throttle and slowed down, or eased off the pull on the stick and the G's would have dropped immediately. But I did neither of those things because in that moment felt like I needed to prove myself so bad that I was like, I have to gun him. I have to win. I have to do this thing successfully, even at
Oh.
this massive expense, which no one logically is going to be like, yes, a training flight is worth dying for. Like that
Mm.
does not make any sense. But in that moment, my ego of needing to prove myself was like such a strong signal that I was like, I can make this happen.
Okay, so this was not gonna be taken well, but when you got off the plane.
Yeah, yeah, and we debriefed it, and my instructor watched it, and he was like at first, he was just like, "Oh, dang, you're supersonic," and it was kinda like, "Okay, well, we know not to do that again." He called it out, but it wasn't like, "Shame on you." It was just like, "Okay, yep, execution error," and then we got to the point where he sees how
Yeah.
long I'm under 9 Gs for, and he's listening to the audio of me doing that air exchange, my G strain, and it starts off, like, perfect timing, real crisp, and then it starts to get, like, fatigued, and the timing starts to falter. And that's
Yeah.
what it will sound like right before someone G-locks.
Oh
And then
my
they'll just go to normal
goodness.
breathing as they pass out.
Whew.
And he's like, "Wait a minute, are you getting light loss there?" And so we start to talk about that, like, he recognized that that was probably happening, and he's like, "If you keep flying that like that, you're going to kill yourself."
Mm.
Just the, like, wave of shame I felt when he said that, it was, like, physical, like, sick to my stomach.
Wow.
And so it's maybe a couple months later, probably like 3, 4 months later when I get named. I get my call sign.
Okay.
And I think there was enough separation there, and the fact that they focused on the mock part, so I could tell people my call sign story by just being like, "I went supersonic when I didn't mean to,"
Mm.
and they're like, "Okay, good enough." Because really the part that I was embarrassed by and was, like, really not okay is the part after that, where I, like, pushed it to a near G-lock.
Gotcha.
The first
Okay.
part was an okay mistake to make at the phase I was at in learning. I think I liked I was like, "Ooh, this sounds like a cool."
It does,
Like, it could be so much worse. Like, it sound people are always like, "Hoochie pepper
yeah.
spray." I'm like, "I haven't done that yet, but maybe we can still make that happen." The Navy has some of the worst call signs. I've met, like, a booger, teabag.
Oh,
Like, the
wow.
Navy has no, threshold of, like, you must sound cool even if the story is not cool. So it could be so much worse.
You lucked out.
Uh
Yeah.
But I think later on, as it took me a long time before I would tell people the whole story
Mm.
because I was like, "Oh, Mace sounds cool," and you get used to it so fast because literally as soon as they give it to you, everyone calls you that. Like, you never hear your first name again at work, it's
Yeah.
wild.
So interesting.
So it becomes like you embody it, but I would say it took me until maybe even leaving the Air Force to really, like, reflect on call signs and, like, the positive of that, not just being like, "Oh, this is a cool, unique thing we do, and it's cool to have a call sign." More
Right.
like, this normalizes that we're in a really hard job where no one gets through their mission qualification training as a new fighter pilot unscathed. Like, no one
Yeah.
walks away without having made many mistakes, and even the most experienced pilot in your squadron, who is the most admired, has a call sign.
Yeah, interesting. That's a really cool way to think about it. Like everybody around you is imperfect, and it's a constant reminder that perfection does not exist. It's
Yes.
okay to be human, even though you are in a really, really high stress situation. So, there was a Netflix documentary that came out about the Thunderbirds, right? And I know that you mentioned that you really enjoyed it. And was the filming only a couple years after you had left the military? Is that something that you would have loved to be included in if you were still obviously in that position? Is there a part of you that's disappointed that the timing did not match up? What are the feelings around that?
I mean, I would have loved to be part of. It's kinda twofold. The job is so stressful and the schedule is so intense that bringing in a film crew to try to be part of that mix surely had to be stressful and a big burden for the team,
Yeah.
a distraction and all the things. But because of the team's mission, it's worth doing something like that. But I'm sure it was frustrating at points to add like more things that had to happen on top of all the things that already have to happen in that world. But they did a great job. Like the storytelling, the finished product, the cinematography was incredible. All the footage they took from the helicopters just so good. And that world has just come so far. Like the quality of it, we saw it in Top Gun Maverick, like
Right.
real people and real jets, and it's just incredible footage. And then the Blue Angels had an IMAX documentary that had incredible footage, and then our Netflix is the same. Just if you like airplanes, you're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. Threat, who you saw in the documentary, and we actually went to the same college, which is like the smallest world. She got hired right as I was leaving. So we overlapped for like one winter training season.
Okay.
And then there was 1 year after her where there were no women flying for the team. And now number 6, Rogue is her call sign.
Okay.
Female solo pilot. So love to see that. It's super cool because the interactions you get to have with those little girls are incredible. To just see their world expand in front of your eyes when they connect the dots of like someone that looked like them did this superhero-esque thing they just saw. Best part of the job. But I like that they focused on 2 people really closely, Astro and Primo, and they like really took people into their personal struggles throughout that training season of Astro and trying to manage his family and being gone all the time and lead the team, and Primo trying to learn this maneuver that he was struggling with. And I think that allowed your general audience or general viewer to really feel like connected.
Right.
People will be like, was Primo's struggle with the rejoin, is like that realistic? I mean, it is something that everyone struggles with in that position, but every new person on the team is having their own version of his struggle. Like the solo is probably struggling with the Delta roll because that's our hardest thing, I would say. And, one of the other wingmen is struggling with a different maneuver. They just kind of had to pick something to focus on.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like it was just like, well, aviation lovers like this, but no one can connect with actual like characters.
Right.
Like I think that footage is something that's so cool for Primo when he has grandkids someday.
Right.
To like take them into that world at such like a detailed level. Like I was initially, when it first released, a little bit envious of that. I'm like, wow, how cool to have your experience documented like that.
Right.
But I'm also very conscious of I had my time, and that team is a new team every year. Like 50% of those pilots swap every winter. So even
wow.
3 people that were there last year, when you bring in half the people new, it's just a new dynamic, a new experience.
Wow. Yeah.
And because I have a platform and I have the book and I'm speaking and I have the social media and stuff, I don't want it to seem like the Thunderbirds is just all my experience. Like everyone on that team is having their own experience and working their butts off. And even outside of the pilots, right? There's 130 people that make up that team. And you only most people only see the 6 jets, and like that's the face of it. But all the behind the scenes people who are leaving their families for 240 days a year, who are traveling time zones constantly, who are, operating in an environment with super high repercussions and lots of pressure, and having all of their own nuanced experiences for their team.
Right.
I think it's important when you leave that world to accept that you've left and like that will never be your team again. And to also like honor the people who are currently out there doing the job. They're at an air show right now, or they're traveling right now, and they are gone a lot, and they're working their butts off, and they're dealing with 9Gs and all of the things. And so I always want to make sure I support the current team.
That's really well put. And, since you mentioned, like air shows and all the things that the Thunderbirds specifically do, how do you feel about any public criticism that comes up, opinions about, programs like that being maybe not the best use of military resources, or the impact on the environment, things like that? Are there benefits people are overlooking or they're not aware of? Was so curious about your thoughts as somebody who's been in that world, who's now outside of that world.
Yeah, I would say you can criticize the military in general on their impact in the environment. I think just like
Yeah.
targeting the demo teams is just like a lack of understanding of those pilots would be flying training flights in a different squadron if they weren't there. It's not like you're just moving it from one place to the other. I mean, but you definitely can get into it's obviously not cheap, right? To take
Mm.
these aircraft, the level that we fly, and just like move across the country constantly. Um, I think the recruiting piece, well, there's two pieces that are really important. The recruiting piece is essential. Like I cannot tell you the number of fellow fighter pilots that I meet that say that their moment of inspiration was seeing the jets fly at an air show as a kid.
Oh, wow.
It directly translates into people signing up for the military, pursuing, and not just wanting to become a fighter pilot, but all sorts of people in different positions will be like, I saw the Thunderbirds fly, or I saw the Blue Angels fly, and I decided I was going to join the military because of that. And
Wow.
with an all volunteer force, like it's important that we still have those, young adults willing to make that sacrifice. And culture has shifted away from that a lot. And so I think it's like even more important now that people see like the honor and the value and all of the things that come with being in the military. And then the other part of it is it's a way for your taxpayer who might have no personal connection to the military to see where those dollars and support actually go as far as like the professionalism, the excellence, just the like what we can really do. I think it creates like confidence by the American public in the military in general. Like we have good people up there that really know what they're doing that are protecting us.
Yeah. Oh, those are fascinating points. Are there any rituals or like habits that you have kept from the military that people might be surprised to know that you've kept around in your current life, whether personally or professionally? I don't know how you make your bed or anything weird like that.
Definitely not that one. I think I am a little bit messier than I was when I was forced to like fold hospital corners and fold t-shirts into perfect squares. More like broadly doing uncomfortable things. Like I think the military really taught me the value in doing uncomfortable things and just recognizing that it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Mm,
Like going through basic training type courses, through pilot training, through 9Gs, through a 10-hour flight in an F-16 cockpit, or being deployed. And like all of those are uncomfortable. And
yeah.
recognizing that you can, like, to be cliche at this point, you can do hard things. But that is like that resilience and grit and belief in your own ability to endure when things don't feel great is just something that serves you in all parts of your life. And I've seen as I've left that world and I'm no longer forced to be uncomfortable, that it would be very easy to slide away from that. But I think like my like workout ritual of like getting up this morning at 5:30 and going working out in my garage gym, even though it's so hot. I live in Vegas.
Oh,
It's like
wow. Yeah.
even at like 6:30 in the morning, it was so hot in the garage already. But just being like, okay, suck it up, buttercup. You can do this. And you're paying your future self to stay like fit and healthy. And also
Right.
you're maintaining that like mental grit of doing something that's physically uncomfortable. And that is like one of the biggest things that the military taught me.
Yeah, I would imagine that that mindset will just stick with you forever and you'll just apply it to a bunch of different things in your life. If you could build a program for young pilots from scratch and fill some gaps in that weren't there for you during your training or anything like that, what would that program look like or what would it have that maybe you didn't have?
It has changed so much since I went through with the
Oh,
just the simulation and getting so much better,
oh, interesting.
and the use of like VR headsets, able to like record like even on the Thunderbirds, record an entire flight from one specific pilot's position on a GoPro 360 and then move that into the type of file to be uploaded into a VR headset so that the new pilot coming in, instead of seeing the references and who will be where and like what part of their aircraft I'll be seeing and all that for the first time in an actual jet, they can sit in an office chair, put that on, and look around like they're actually in the cockpit and be
Wow.
like, oh, okay, that's how close that other airplane's going to be. Oh, that's like, I want to put the wingtip in that reference spot. It's insane. We've come
Wow.
so far. So I feel like I would grossly be overestimating how well I know the current training program to have the expertise to rebuild it from scratch. I'm like the
Yeah.
beaver in that world right now.
Yeah, the technology has just gotta be every single year, something is just being improved upon. Is there anything in your new book that almost did not make it out of maybe self-doubt or fear or just being nervous about sharing a specific moment?
Yeah, we went back and forth a lot during edits and everything on how to talk about being a woman in that world.
Yeah,
Because I was like, either I pretend this wasn't a thing and other women are gonna read this that are in male-dominated careers or that are pursuing aviation, and they're gonna be like, "What the heck? Like, we know this is a thing, why did she not talk about it?" And I'm gonna miss out on this massive opportunity for them to feel like someone gets it.
mm,
Or if I do talk about it completely honestly, and I talk about the comment about checking the box, and I talk about the the, like, way that I felt like I had to fit in and be one of the guys and go along with, like, the jokes and stuff, like, all of that in
yeah.
full detail, then I'm worried about the other side being like, "She's just playing the victim. This is why we shouldn't have women in the military."
Oh gosh, yeah,
And so
yeah,
it was like, damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
yeah,
And what I settled on was I was gonna speak truthfully, and I was gonna tell the specific stories. I wasn't gonna name anyone.
yeah,
And I actually my biggest concern was that I would share my perspective as I perceived it, as I experienced it, because that's the only perspective I have,
right.
in all the detail, and that one of the people that was actually in the squadron with me would read it and feel like I was, like, throwing them under the bus,
Mm,
right? Like, I was calling them out, and because those were my friends.
yeah,
And I say that in the book. I share all the stories, and then I'm like, that squadron in Japan, which is where I struggled with that the most, we were really good at what we did. Like, we were so good at our tactical skills, like the best unit probably for that I've ever been part of. And we had some of the most fun. Like, I got to travel all over Asia with a lot of those people and just do some of the most amazing things as like a 25-year-old, and just like it was insane. But I also had like the darkest periods of my life there, just
mm,
filled with self-doubt, struggling with my identity, feeling like I had to dress up when I was at work and put on this facade, and that there was just this massive disconnect, like where I was inauthentic, and that wears on you over time.
yeah,
And so I talk about it all. I talk about the example I shared. I talk about some other ones. And then I say something like, I don't personally have any negative feelings towards the people that were there. I think they were navigating it as best they could at the time as well. They were dealing with all of their own pressures in that environment. And they were also, for a lot of the guys, just trying to fit in.
mhm,
And that's the culture that that squadron, or kind of fighter squadrons in general, had at that point in time. And it would take a very, very strong person to come in as a newbie and push back against that.
right. That's a tough position for you to be in, and I'm so glad that you did share. Did you, did you make the decision to tell people that certain things were gonna be mentioned before the book is coming out, or did you just decide, if they read it and they wanna talk about it, they can talk with me, or how did you approach that?
So I named very few people.
Okay.
Um, and so I didn't reach out to many in advance because I specifically tried to keep it where people wouldn't know who I'm talking about unless they were like really close in that group.
Yeah.
And I also made sure that I wasn't derogatory towards anyone. I didn't want to like shame anyone. I talk about my divorce in there. Like, I didn't want to shame my ex-husband and talk poorly about him. I just wanted to speak to it from my side of like the things I was personally struggling with that contributed to that failure, and then
Mm.
navigating it and all of that. And so I think the only one, there was like a near miss with a fellow Thunderbird that I had, and he's just one of my really close friends. So I was like, "Hey, heads up, I think I want to put that in the book." And he's like, it's a story that should be told. Like
Mm.
it was like, yeah, I have no problem with that. And then the other one is there's a story about helping one of my pilot training classmates who is from Afghanistan, an Afghan pilot who went back to Afghanistan while we were withdrawing, withdrawing US forces.
Yeah.
Him and his family were like being hunted down by the Taliban.
My God.
And myself and my pilot training class, who at this time were all like in their 30s, like majors in the Air Force or about to leave to go fly for the airlines or whatever, like we're experienced. And he reaches out, and most of us hadn't talked to him in a decade.
Wow.
And he reached out on Facebook Messenger and was like, guys, I need your help. I'm in Afghanistan. I'm stuck. We can't get out. I have me and 14 family members, including kids, and we are being by name hunted by the Taliban because his dad was a very high-ranking person in the Afghan National Army. So they were like specifically looking for that family.
Oh my gosh.
And it was an insane story of how they got out. They ended up all getting out and coming to the US. And our class and Facebook Messenger and pulling all the resources we had in the Air Force and outside of it made that happen.
Oh my gosh.
And it was wild. And I wanted to talk about that because it was such a good example of like, I talk about like the wingman kind of idea of like the person that has your back and checks your six and how you build those relationships.
Yeah.
And it was just such an insane example of that, even though that time had lapsed.
Right.
But I wanted to be cognizant that his family, like their lives were at risk at that time.
Right.
And if they were to go back there, that would still be a thing. And so I did reach out to him and I was like, is it safe for me to tell this story? I did change his name in there and just tried to leave out some pieces. Like I didn't put his dad's official title or anything like that to protect them some. But that one I was like, we need to make sure this is okay to tell, that it's not going to have any unintended consequences.
Wow. That is, I just can't even imagine being in that position and then making it happen. How did everybody feel who contributed to their getting them to safety?
It was an emotional roller coaster, and we were all living our like normal lives while we're trying to do as much as we can. Like I'm flying air shows while this is happening. So on the road, some of the other guys were like stationed in different places, but there were probably like 2 guys in my class that just like went all in. They were calling top breaking generals and they were pulling every thread that they could. And they were sleeping like 4 hours a night to always be like, one of them was always awake communicating with our friend and all the stuff. And then I was in, a unique position with the Thunderbirds where the military has a very strict chain of command, right? Like you go to your boss, they go up from there. Jumping that chain of command is very frowned upon.
Yeah.
But this was a situation where I was just like, I don't care. Like I'm going to send an email or I'm going to make a phone call and tell them who I am or whatever I can do. I'm going to leverage this position that I'm in, even if I get in trouble for it.
Right.
These are physical humans who could die.
Right.
Who are like our allies who fought on behalf of the US, who like went through a year-long training program with me. So I was just like willing to take that risk. And I think between the 3 of us, and then everyone else was doing kind of what they could, but we just happened to be in positions that had the most ability to do something. There were like these moments of, oh, we think we got them a flight on a C-17 to get out of the country. Oh, they can't get to the base. Oh, all of a sudden we haven't heard from them in 24 hours. Like, are they dead? Like, what happened? It was just this emotional roller coaster. So it's a long story, but when it was finally like everyone is out, because they didn't all get out at once, they ended up like split up and it was wild.
Wow.
I almost cried when I was like briefing for an air show and I opened it and I saw a picture of my friend and his wife outside of the country. Like they had gotten to a safe country nearby. And they're like, holy shit, we did it.
Oh my
and then,
gosh.
Okay, now I got to go brief to fly an air show. Set that aside for the moment. And like most of the people in my squadron didn't even know this was happening. The other pilots I'm flying with, I think I had told like 2 people. But it was just crazy because it's like this massive thing is going on in the background. And then you got to be focused and on to do your day job.
Oh my gosh. It's gotta be such a interesting feeling for you to have done this job that literally movies are made of. So thank you for your service. Mace, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think is especially important for people to know? And then where can people find you, your book, all that good stuff?
I mean, you can kind of gather from the subtitle, How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower, what the book's really about.
Right.
But I think what I write for other women. I assume a lot of your listeners are other women.
Yes. Yeah, about 70%.
Yeah, so I have the inverse of that as far as my social media audience, because guys tend to gravitate towards fighter jets. So when I started to build my account, I was sharing a lot of behind the scenes cockpit footage and that kind of thing. And so it's almost like it might be even like 80-20 or closer biased towards men, which is fine. But when I think about who I write for, and I think about those stories we talked about today with just the pressure you put on yourself as a woman, or navigating like the double standards and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about marketing the book and they're like, who's the customer avatar? I'm like, it's not for other pilots. It's for other women who are at a pivotal point where they're making some sort of change and they're scared and they doubt themselves and they're like wondering if they deserve what they're going after or that they're capable. And that might be a new grad going to the workforce. That might be a mom who's about to be a parent for the first time or is about to come back to the workforce after being off raising their kids. Or it might be someone who's about to retire, right? It's like anything where there's a lot of change happening, where you start to let that inner critic write the narrative and influence your decisions. I'm like, that's who I write for. And I'm so excited to start to hear how the book impacts those people. My website's macecurran.com. So just call sign, last name, Instagram, mace_Curran. There's all sorts of book stuff there, but the book is available anywhere books are sold. And then all of my branding stuff is call sign, last name. So you'll find me on all the platforms and all the things.
All right, everyone, you can check out Mace's new book, The Flip Side. It's available anywhere books are sold, wherever you prefer to buy your books. And I think a big takeaway for me is the way that Mace just followed that feeling of excitement that kind of led into the next phase of her life or career. So, when she first saw a jet take off, when she first saw that the Thunderbirds had openings, that excited her. The reactions of the kids in the audience of an air show. So, when she was ready to leave the military, I know that we didn't really get much into that transition in detail. But she had mentioned that, it had taken a toll on her body, being in that type of career for so long, and just feeling ready to pursue her next calling. And, the feeling of inspiring those kids made it kind of clear what her next step would be. She actually wrote a children's book, and now obviously writing a book for adults, she's speaking and all of that. And so I think that is just a great reminder for all of us that we can draw on those feelings of excitement or that, sense of adventure, the things that give us a little boost of energy, even if you have to look back at what used to give you that feeling, whether it's something that you have pursued in the past or you never ended up pursuing. I just think that can always be a really great next step if you are feeling stuck or off right now in any way. And we can all experience that feeling of excitement, whether it leads you to the road of being a pilot or whether it leads you to make a painting or start a podcast or whatever it is. So I thought that was a cool takeaway and something that can really unite all of us, even if we don't really understand each other's passions or jobs or whatever it might be. Okay, I hope you have a good rest of the day. You can be my wingman anytime. Top Gun quote? Anybody? All right, I'll talk to you soon. So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you want to go deeper into this topic, check out the list of related conversations linked in today's episode's description. Feel free to share the podcast with anyone who may appreciate the variety of things we discuss here. And if you don't want to miss notifications about new episodes, you can subscribe to Self-Helpless wherever you enjoy podcasts. You can also head to selfhelplesspodcast.com for some free goodies like the Quotable Buffet, the Watch and Read list, and more. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.